Welcome to the Uplift, where we are uplifting our lives, uplifting each other, and uplifting our communities together. Thank you for joining myself, Sai Herrera, and Tessa Savala here, two women, two attorneys, doing it our way, and inviting you here each week to share in on the stories, advice, and life lessons we've picked up along our journeys that keep us uplifted, and that will hopefully do the very same thing for you. Now buckle in and let's get ready to be uplifted.
Hey there, Tessa. Och jag är här med den underbara Sai. Hi, as always, I am Tessa, and I'm joined by the amazing, accomplished ray of sunshine in human form, Sai.
And I am grateful as always to be here with the brilliant and most phenomenal Tessa. Thank you for leading us into this next topic. I'm excited again for this conversation.
I am too, and I think this is something that we have talked about a lot because it's maybe almost a daily occurrence, but I was thinking about all my brilliant friends who are women or queer or people of color or immigrants, and how they are so brilliant and so accomplished, and their self-doubt is so high. And it's not all the time, but when it peaks what seems to me higher than it does in, say, your stereotypical white male American, right? Like, I feel like they feel it more. And I was thinking through myself, and I'm so curious about your thoughts on it. Is it because society has put all these burdens upon people who are otherwise othered, and so we assume that we have to do more and be more perfect and be over-prepared, and when we make a mistake, it's going to be, printed in the papers and sent through every email, and everybody's going to text message about it, and there's going to be a public shaming.
Or maybe the public shaming is real. I mean,
even scarier, right?
Yeah, I think that's, to me, like, there's so much, like, just from that bit that you said, I'm thinking like, oh, this is so complex. And I think that's why it gets overwhelming, right? For folks who have experienced all the things that get them to this place. So my first thought is, when you were describing that, it made me think of like, well, there's different kind of like layers and levels in which you experience and things that inform, your stability or your, positioning, or whatever you want to call it. But the first thing I think of is like your individual trauma, right? Where it's like you went through your life as you, in your particular birth order, with your particular family unit, with your particular, whatever circumstances, all the things. And all of that personal trauma is just, the first layer. And then you layer on top of that all of the experiences that you've had based on your, identity, or how the world perceives your identity, right? In terms of racism and sexism and transphobia and, queerphobia and homophobia and all the things, like, so then you had to navigate the world in that regard. And I always think about like your school age years too. Like I'm so big into developmental, but all of that shapes you in terms of your social dynamics, right? Like my baby's 9 years old, and I see her still like being so sweet and innocent and just like striking up a conversation with somebody new, like nothing, like kids do. And then like you get into middle school. And
oh my God, middle school.
And it's like everybody knows, why we're making those sounds, right? Because things change. And I think the reason why it's so dramatic is because it's like, this is the age where children become like real social beings, right? Not real social beings, like they've always been social beings, but they basically start their like, serious conditioning into the adult world and how they socialize with other people, how they are socialized around other people, right? We're such social animals. So there's this whole other layer, right, of just socialization, how you fit in society. And if you are not the mainstream, identity, whatever that might be in your society, then you have that other layer, right, of experience. So all that to be said, like I just started thinking about all the many layers that impact folks in these situations and get them to that place. Because if you are going through your work, space now, if you are in your career and you are dealing with all of these different people and all these different new dynamics, it's kind of like a microcosm society, right? Like every
Oh
workplace
yeah.
is kind of its own little like society. And that's why, there's a whole school of thought on like workplace culture, right? But it makes me think that it's like, how do you take all of that and then put it into this new society? I mean, it made me think about like, is this somehow parallel to the immigrant experience in any way? I don't know. It depends.
Oh, right. Like
It
it's almost
depends.
assimilation. Like you have to
Yes.
assimilate into each
Yes.
new
Exactly.
workplace. Wow.
Exactly. Exactly. So that made me think that if you're taking all of this with you wherever you go, then it must influence, how not only, you try to navigate that space, but also how you cope with the way that other people not only
Mhm.
navigate, but create that space, right? So I know I'm talking in a lot of generalizations, but I can think of just so many examples, I'm sure you can too, of how difficult it can be and how you can be set up for, feeling that way. Do you relate to those feelings and those kinds of conditions that you see people going through?
I do. I mean, I like everybody have the occasional self-doubt, but I had have such a strong mother who taught me early on never to allow somebody else's opinions or feelings
Mm,
to impact how I feel about myself, right?
mm.
Which is like powerful advice to grow up with.
Yes, I love that. We need to write
And
that
I'm
down
very
and tell
fortunate
every
that
child.
that's what she taught me, which is
Yes.
really hard. And I think it was because when we came to the United States, it was an isolated
Mm,
Swedish community that we were in.
mm.
And I guess all those, you know, women in Sweden in 900 had more rights than women today in the United States. And I think it's that whole idea that they came to this country and they kept that cultural identity.
Mm. Yeah, they already know who they are. They already know their power. Like once that's the most amazing thing about I think awareness and and just seeing truth. Like I think about it in the spiritual sense of like once you know, and
Yeah.
no one can take that away from you. Like people can argue with you or tell you what they believe and you can be like, okay, like it doesn't bother you. You're
Right. And
unbothered.
I love one. I thrive for being unbothered. Like
Hmm.
that's a life goal of mine, just to
Mm,
constantly be unbothered.
yes.
The other is even when, say, that self-doubt creeps in, I have become very good about not allowing it to sit. I have been very good about it.
How? How do you do that, Tessa? How do you refuse to let it sit and fester? Because we know that is how you spiral. Like you mentioned that word,
Oh
like you
yeah.
mentioned the spiraling. Well, the spiraling
Hmm.
can only happen if you let it go further down, further down, further. And when I say let it, I don't mean that it's easy to just not allow it. I'm asking how, because when you're in those moments, it is not
It's hard.
easy. So
It
how
is
do you
not
do
easy.
it? Give us
And
the manual.
I first want to preface this with I don't deny those feelings to myself,
Hmm.
but I also don't allow them to live, right? Like I don't give
Mm.
them air to breathe. So I
Oh,
suffocate them very
okay.
quickly.
Okay.
And
I
what
like
I
that.
say to myself is, this is not an efficient use of my time.
Ooh, that's a good one. And that speaks to you because you like efficiencies, right? So I love that. What
Yes.
is it?
I know it makes me sound like a robot and not a human, but yeah, I do love efficiencies.
Well, I mean, we're gonna have to be competing with the robots soon, so we need to get it
God,
together.
I hope not.
But what you said actually reminded me of a Buddhist teaching that I heard recently, and or at least the saying that came from it, and um, they said, "Whatever you feed grows, and whatever you starve dies."
Ah, yes. Mm-hmm.
And so it made me think exactly that when you said, like, I'm going to suffocate it, which I kind of love because you're like, I'm not going to just let it fest. I'm going to kill this and let it be gone. Like,
Yeah,
and it should be killed, right? Because it has no
it
business
should.
being there.
It's not only it shouldn't be there, it's so like, it causes more harm being
Yes,
there, right? Like
yes.
it it's like a infection that then goes after
The
all the
virus.
good things you see about yourself, which is just insane.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for anyone who has experienced depression or knows someone who's experienced depression, like, that like I always say like the depression is lying to you. Like the
Right?
depression will literally color your whole world in a different light and it distorts it, I would say,
Yep.
right? To where you can't even see truth or good anymore. All you see is bad. All you see is negativity. So you starve it out. I love that. You suffocate it, you said. And you tell yourself, this is an inefficient use of my time. Why does that speak to you? And I'm thinking like, how can we get that to work for other people too? Because your friend who you were saying, maybe was spiraling out, or friends that you've seen spiraling out in the past, like, are they as moved by being efficient or not? Like, what else could
No, I
could
don't
pull
think a
them
lot
out?
of people like are hyper fixated on efficiency like I am. Right? Like, and this speaks to my childhood.
Hmm.
Like, when I was a kid and I was in the car with my mom, she would ask me on repeat, like, okay, we're driving from our house to, say, the grocery store. What is the most efficient way to get there with the fewest
Mm.
stoplights? Like, that was her thing. So it was like everything was always a quiz about efficiency. And and to this day, like, my entire grocery store list is written in the order of the store, from the way I
Mm.
enter the store to the way I like to navigate the store.
Nice. Well, I mean, the beauty in that, I mean, I feel like there are gifts of efficiency and there are pitfalls, of course, right? But one of the gifts that I love about that is like you win more time for yourself. Like if you
Right? To
know,
do the
like,
things that bring you
yeah,
joy.
yeah,
Right? Like,
yeah.
I would so much
If you
rather do the
know
joy
that,
stuff.
if you know how to do that. Now, I think that the pitfalls that I want to make sure to mention too are that a lot of people operate in that kind of mindset. Like I know that I can relate to that in terms of like always wanting to build systems that are more and more efficient and, are going to work better. But when I gain more time, I don't necessarily use it for joy. I use it for, and what's the next project, And so I think that
Mm.
perpetual, like, you got to do more and there's got to be more things. And, just continually applying that efficiency mindset. It's almost like a kind of like a perfectionism, like an endless perfectionism
Yeah.
spiral. So
Yeah.
I want to say both of those things because if you know how to use that free time, then yes, I support all the efficiencies. But you
And
got to know how to use it.
you do it. I will say when that argument, the efficiency argument doesn't work for me, I go
Mhm.
for neuroscience, which tells us
Mm.
that if we keep repeating positive things to ourselves, we can reprogram our brains to see the good
Yes.
in things, and we will stop doubting ourselves, and we'll talk about ourselves and look what I accomplished this week, or look at all the things that I've done, or think about how much joy I brought people, or
Mm.
if you want to think in terms of efficiency, how I made our group project more efficient by, creating an agenda and task list or whatever it might be,
Yeah.
right?
One thing that came up for me when you're saying that is as we were talking about, all the layers that people bring with them, it made me think too, what's underlying all of those things is fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you get into the spiral, so like, for example, when you were talking about, well, let's think about the positivity. Like, let's be grateful for this. Let's count, all the ways that we did good. I felt a little sense of fear creep into my mind of like, yes, but I have to watch out
Yeah.
and
Yep.
I have to be vigilant. And that hypervigilance comes from trauma always, right? And
Yep.
sometimes I want to recognize, it's sometimes I feel like that can be dismissive, like, oh, there was trauma in your life, so you're just being hyper vigilant, you're overreacting. It's almost like another word for overreacting. And sometimes we're actually appropriately reacting because
Right.
we are people who have actually experienced, over and over again, things being taken away from us, opportunities being denied us,
Mm-hmm.
like unfair and unjust treatment because of who we are, how we identify, or where we came from. And so if your body has learned all of that in your lived experience, it's not unreasonable to be thinking that in this other place, it makes all the sense actually, right? That's an appropriate response, I would think. Now,
Absolutely, especially when we
mhm,
have to consider the fact that the other people we're interacting with have their own traumas and bring
yeah.
their own trauma to the workplace, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes I'm reminded of one of my least favorite commercials in the last year, which is Celsius Energy and their let's do 48 hours in 24, because that just seems very toxic to me, right? Or the mindset I think that permeates a lot of tech companies, which is we're going to work through the night or we're going
Hmm.
to, work for 36 hours straight or whatever it might
Tech
be.
companies, law firms,
Oh my God. Yes. Billable
nonprofits,
hours.
like,
Oh.
I don't know that, I actually asked the internet the other day, like, what fields are not toxic? Like, are there like, like, because I had a theory as a young person that like, oh, like do-gooders are in nonprofits. Like, I'm going to go into nonprofits and then it's going to be so healthy and great. And now I'm like, well, that was misled, or misguided. But, I think that if you really think about it, that culture can permeate in any space and it can
Yep.
also be the opposite in any space or any field, right? It's really the
Mhm.
people. And like you
Mhm.
said, people bring their trauma. And it makes me think back again to 2020 where it was like, people were experiencing a collective trauma. And there was a time where like, certain corporations, like the big ones and, just the ones that actually get highlighted in the media were basically saying it's time for everyone to go back to the office. And I remember being like on the other side of that and being like, no. Like people
Yeah.
need to be safe. They need to feel comforted right now. Like we need to ease back into this. And I remember, just where I was at the time, like somebody fighting me on that and being like, obviously they need to come back. And I was like, obviously they don't. And, it was just like we were in two different worlds. We had just completely
Right.
two different perspectives that were informed
And I
by lived
think,
experience.
and a lot of it is how should we judge or I guess evaluate is a better word, evaluate work performance. Is it being
Mm,
present but not productive, or is it being productive because the data shows that people are more productive when they have flexibility or the ability to work from
mm-hmm,
home, right? Especially in
mm-hmm.
fields where that can happen.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, where it's an option. Absolutely. So I love that you went back to efficiencies and it speaks to me. I'll just say like, I love things that make sense. I'm like, if you can show me the logic and that we're going to like save money, time, we're going to increase wellness or whatever it is, like if it's going to
Hmm.
lead to a positive outcome and you can show me how we can do it in a better way. I don't even think of it as efficient. I just think of it as like better outcomes. If you can tell me how that's going to be the case, you can win me. Like I could start off in a whole different
Right?
place. Like I love that. I kind of love being proved wrong because I'm like, ooh, now I have a new thing to think, like I learned something new. It's exciting for me. But
I
for
mean,
people, go ahead.
from my lived experiences, I find that the days that I work from home and don't go into the office, I am better hydrated.
Oh yeah.
I
You can go to the
am less
bathroom when you
stagnant
need
because,
to.
right? Like I can get up and walk around and walk in the garden as opposed to,
Mm,
do I want to walk around downtown and
mm.
I'm going to have multiple conversations with people on the street and no,
No, no, I do not. and, well,
right? Because
and
they,
it speaks to who you are. Like, not only are people carrying their trauma, but people are carrying their own individual, like, literal temperaments. So when I studied developmental psychology, it was like down to the babies, right? And they'd be like, babies are literally just born with different temperaments. I thought that was so fascinating because I really believed in more like, nurture versus nature at the time. But I was like, okay, if babies are like just born that way, people are different,
yep,
and so like for you, that would be draining, I'm sure. And you would be giving so much of your energy and not being restored, right? And
yeah,
for other people, like maybe like me, I mean, I don't know if I'm an extrovert or introvert anymore. I'm not sure. I'm struggling in between, but, or I'm going back and forth, I should say right now. It's evolving. But sometimes for me, like having conversations with people is sometimes really, really invigorating, like this conversation, right? Like if it's
right.
something creative, if it's something, that fascinates me, like it gives me energy. But I will tell you too, like I recognize now that if I'm having a conversation where I have to like wear the mask, is the way I like
Hmm.
to put it now. Like if I have to, put on a smile when it's not real, if I have to like, I don't know, like just follow a script or whatever. Like if it's not just like a genuinely exciting conversation for me, then it drains me. So I think it's really, that's another part of it. I don't know how I took us to this conversation about whether we're in the workplace or not, but people, people are all different.
They
And
are.
I have seen like some people like do not do well, necessarily like being more remote, but I would think that I wouldn't be one of those people, but at the same time, like I've learned so much about myself of like, oh, if I go lay down for 2 minutes, I'm going to be
Hmm.
so much more productive and my brain is going to
Yep.
come back and I can literally like work for 4 more hours. Like it's wild. It's wildly effective. So I feel that too.
Yeah. And then you think about like the research behind it. Like Adam Grant says that there are too many employers that judge performance
Mm-hmm.
by visual things like, are
Mm,
you engaging? Are you
mm,
contributing a lot of noise during
mm,
meetings
mm.
as opposed to actual productivity?
And see, this actually brings up a lot for me because one of the things that I recognize when we talk about workplace culture is also like just, culture in the original
Yeah.
sense, right? So, I don't know about your culture in terms of like, how do you all generally approach, group dynamics? But like in my culture, one of the things that I learned, or at least from my, tribe, my family unit and all of that, like one of the things that rings in my head that I have been always trying to like kind of at least be aware of, and then sometimes like try to overcome or try to figure out like how I square this is I still have a voice in my head that says like your work should speak for itself. And when I hear that voice, I'm like, yeah, so I can just keep my head down and keep working like hell. And then people are going to recognize me. And what I keep finding over and over again is that that's not really working.
I think I have some of this. I have my culture has some of the similar traits of your work should speak for itself,
Mm-hmm.
mostly because Swedes and Scandinavians and Nordic people tend to be very productivity and efficiency
Mm-hmm.
driven.
Mm-hmm.
Surprise, surprise after this
Yeah.
conversation,
All
right?
right. What it
And
must be like
I
to be
lost my
with your
train of thought.
people. That must be amazing.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that we cannot live in a society where productivity or just like being a decent employee is, I guess, being a solid, productive employee is
Mm-hmm.
not rewarded
Right.
when the office gossip is the person who is rewarded.
Yes, or the performance of it all, darling. Like
Yeah, yes,
the
exactly.
theater of it all.
And and it's like, especially as somebody who sees the BS very
Mhm.
clearly, a
Mhm.
lot of the times, it's
Yeah.
frustrating when you realize that many people in leadership only see the BS and don't see this is, you know, this work saved the company X dollars, or this work
Yes.
granted them the authority to do
Yes,
this, or
I
whatever
call
it
it the
might be.
quiet work, like the unsung heroes, right? Like there are
Mm-hmm.
people just tooling in the background, making stuff happen all day long, and without them, stuff would crumble probably, right? But like they never get the recognition because they're not bragging about themselves. And I find
Yep.
that to be one of the hardest things, and it takes me back to our topic of like why is it that, women and people of color, queer and trans people, like, why is it that they get into these like, self-doubt spirals? And I think part of it is because, well, we've been socialized not only to
Mm-hmm.
not advocate for ourselves, but to shrink ourselves. And I found this amazing quote on Pinterest recently that was like, I'm done shrinking myself so that I'm easy to swallow. With all due respect, you can fucking choke. And, and I don't know, why it spoke to me right now, but, it made me think about like two things, right? It's like on one hand, you're taught to shrink yourself and to not be braggadocious and to
Mm-hmm.
not be, arrogant. I mean, the way that people put it is like, oh, you think you're so much better than people? Like these are things that people have told me just for walking down this like hallway. You think you're
Yep.
better than me? You think you're better than
Yep.
everybody? Like you just think you're so above everything, whatever. And I'm like, I just literally don't want to get into this drama. Like, and now I have trauma.
Right.
I don't know what happened. Like, I am failing. And so you're taught on one hand to shrink yourself, right? And then on the other hand, you're taught to work like a dog. Like you
Yep.
are taught to like put in everything you got and work twice as hard and be grateful for half as
Mm-hmm.
much. Like that is
Yep.
the reality of so many people who are not, I don't even know how to distinguish anymore, but like you say sometimes, just like all people who are othered, all people who are not it's not the majority anymore because that's not even the
No,
situation.
exactly.
It's the
Right.
powerful, right? Like the people
Yep.
who are in power, like everybody else needs to bend a knee and they need to be thankful for the crumbs that they get. And I'm saying it that way because it's like that is what comes through all the socialization, all the little messaging and conditioning that we receive from people that we love and trust, who receive the same
Mm-hmm.
conditioning. It's not their
Mm-hmm.
fault. It's just that they are vehicles to pass that along because actually that's how you survive. I think that's where the fear and survival part comes in because I'm just going to say our ancestors generally, a lot of them had to do that literally to survive, right? Like they could have been killed for speaking up. They could have been
Mm-hmm.
killed for, stating their opinions or being too much of an independent woman or being openly queer or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and some of those threats still very real today.
Mm-hmm.
And the threats that maybe aren't real or that could be like there's space to navigate them in a different way, that fear, that trauma, that intergenerational trauma, I think still lives in us and it makes us really scared that if we were to do something different, something really bad might happen.
Yeah. And then I think add on to the layer of that at least from my lived experience in the United States, I heard a lot that women were not as smart as men,
Mm,
which is
mm,
blatantly false. People of color were not as smart, blatantly false.
mm-hmm,
Like all the others were diminished in
Mhm.
their capacity and their skills and their brilliance for no other reason than what I'm going to call other people's insecurities.
Yes. And literally just you have to put other people down to make yourself feel better about yourself. Like that's
No.
insecurity. Like
Like
literally
I
just
am a person who
insecurity.
believes 100% that there is room at the table for everybody, and that table is going to make much better decisions when that table is filled with a diverse group.
Yes. And the table can grow and you can also like pull your own fucking seat up to the table and make your own table
Make your own
and
table.
do all the things. Like I feel so, I can personally relate to this topic and that, in my experience, it's like you can never win. It feels like,
Hmm.
that's just me personally speaking from where I am today. It's like, if you put your head down and you work hard as hell and you think that people are going to recognize you and they don't,
Hmm.
you can't win that way, right? So then you try to, get get to a place where you can talk about your accomplishments in a way and you really have to push yourself. I remember
Yeah.
asking for the salary that I needed to support my family the first time and I was terrified and I couldn't really do it except for to like almost like this is going to sound crazy but like almost like disassociate and just do it,
Yep. That's
and
how I do it too when I talk about myself.
and it's like, I'm not even me. Like, I can't feel all the things that would come up in me if I was experiencing the thing. I just say it like, yeah, I want this much money, and I'm just like playing a character or something. And that to me is wild. And that I have to go through that kind of lengths just to ask for what I deserve. Like,
Here's a
wild. Yes,
Here's a
please.
question. When you disassociate, do you think you're a
Hmm.
more effective communicator? I ask this because I think sometimes when I don't put on that like disassociation hat, I
Hmm.
find that I over explain. But when I put that disassociation hat on,
100%.
I feel as though my communication is much clearer and my
It is.
explanations are much more coherent.
Yes, they're like succinct, they're just matter of fact. And,
Hmm.
but the part that worries me is like, it sounds incredibly unhealthy to me. Like,
And
you
when does
know,
it, at some point, does it not stop and you just completely
literally. Well,
disassociated?
see, and this is the part where I get really interested. I think we talked about this before, how like the word persona comes from, the idea of people in theater who used to wear masks and the persona that they would
Hmm.
make behind the mask, right? And one day, like if you keep wearing that mask every day, like you forget that you're wearing it and you start confusing the mask for who you are. And then you
Hmm.
have to get back to who you actually are. And I think that that's really what has happened to me is like, I went through all the socialization and I tried to gamify it all of like, okay, lawyers dress like this and they say this and they talk like that. And, like literally just taking information from wherever I could get it and observing and like studying and trying to be that thing until I could get what I wanted. And then I forgot that like, that's not who I am. That was the
Yeah.
mask that I was trying to build to get what I wanted, right? But it's like years and years and years and years in the making. And same thing with assimilation. And when you bring up the word assimilation, oh my God, it brings up so much for me because even though I'm not an immigrant to this country, even though my people have been on this land for literally millennia,
Hmm.
um, I feel like an immigrant and an orphan in my own country because I have had to learn to assimilate to the people who have power and determine, societal standards. And so I think
Oh,
that,
that brought gave me tears. But
oh,
yes,
I'm
I hear
sorry,
you. But yes,
but it's real, right? Because,
yep.
and I'm sure so many people can relate to that because like, even like you said, if there's, a white woman in Texas, it's like, you would think she has all the privileges in the world, but at the same time, she still has to be her in her skin and whatever people perceive her as. And, God
Hmm.
forbid she's blonde and blue eyed like you because people have all kinds of different stereotypes in their mind about that, and they have different stereotypes about
Hmm.
brunettes and I mean,
Hmm.
literally you're walking in and people make probably 1,000 assumptions about you before you even open your mouth.
Yep.
And so how do you overcome that and not let that become crippling self-doubt? Because the thing that scares me talking about this is like, you can think of examples of people, especially like, your friends who are brilliant, accomplished professionals in their relative fields, and they're experiencing this kind of doubt.
Yep.
Um, that really terrifies me in a way of like understanding that, first of all, it comforts me in knowing that like I'm not alone,
Exactly.
and everyone who's listening to this should know that like, you know, almost everyone goes through that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also like it makes me think about like how quiet it is. And that scares me a little bit because, like, thank God she has you as a friend, but not everyone has a Tessa, as I always say. So it's a shame. But, like, how do we, how do we tool ourselves or even create, the community around us, the tribe around us that we need to endure these challenges? Because these challenges, I don't think, are going away. It seems like they're
Mm-mm.
getting harder and more challenging, actually, right?
Right, like just we talked about
Hmm.
earlier that a survey of Gen Z
Yeah.
found that like 30% of Gen Z boys think women have too many rights,
Ugh,
which is, I
wow.
I thought every generation like improved things, but apparently that may not be the case.
Yeah, and it's just like you said before, it's like a virus. So
Mm-hmm.
anything that is coming through and impacting people that can spread, and ideas can spread like wildfire on
Which
the
is
internet.
why
Hmm.
I have been trying to handle this for the last couple of years, like the self-doubt that I see in all my accomplished friends,
Mm.
is compliments. Point out
Mm.
the good
The
work.
power of
Point out other people's
compliments.
good work.
Yes.
Silence the doubt. Silence the messages from society that we're not supposed to be as good or we're not as talented, because those are just lies that people made up.
Literally. And to take your power, right?
Yeah.
To literally take power in every way that they can, mentally, emotionally. Like, I mean, physical is one realm or dimension of taking power, right? But like taking power over people's minds and
Hmm.
emotional states and like mental stability, emotional stability, like that is a whole different level of power, like that people try to definitely, impact and use to wield power. So yeah, I think you're right. First of all, it makes me think about how important the self work is.
Oh yeah,
So
100%. Because
so
you
the
have to, I think, be
mhm.
a strong, confident person to give a lot of compliments, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, and also to compliment yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, especially in a world that tells you like you shouldn't be bragging like that, or like you're so cocky or arrogant or what, like the things that people tell you to make you want to try to work to force you to try to convince you that you should shrink yourself. So
Hmm.
yes, the confidence is key. And what do you do, Tessa, to build that inner confidence in yourself? It feels like you had a good, like, sturdy starting point maybe from childhood, but I'm sure there are parts of you that you had to develop out on your own as you started navigating, different parts of this world and this country and all of the challenges and amazing things that you've done in spaces that you've been in. Like, how did you build confidence in those new places, in those, different places and places that your parents have never been, that no one that you probably knew had ever been? Like, you're forging new paths. So like, how did you build confidence in being like being a leader in that way?
I use my ability to be silent strategically,
Mm,
because silence makes people in the United States uncomfortable,
silence and
right? I think because
stillness.
it's a
Yes.
society that is very much driven by external motivations and external factors, right?
And
Like
noise, just noise.
noise. Hmm.
Yeah, just
And
distractions and
instead of
noise.
saying
Hmm.
say 20 things during a meeting or in a classroom.
Mm.
I say one, but it's poignant.
And how powerful is that? Like, what response do you get as a woman in these spaces that I'm sure is still very male predominant?
Mm-hmm.
What response do you get? Like, how do you see that people perceive you when you're able to exercise in that way, when you're able to show up in that way?
I find that people will listen more if you're not speaking all the time, right? Like it's like the boy who cried wolf. If you're just continuously crying wolf, or you're just continuously bragging about how bad of a big bad wolf you are, people aren't going to pay attention because it's just a bunch of noise. But when you say limited number of things, people are like, oh my God, she speaks. Oh my God, she said something brilliant.
Wow. And how do you, so you said that you use that power that you have. Is that inherent, or do you have like any tactics or techniques that other people could try to use in order to do that? Because I am a talker and I love to fill all the space, and I love to keep, building off of each other's sentences, all the things. And I have learned the same thing, not as expertly as you yet, but when I got into fundraising, one of the most powerful moves was you set up the ask and then you shut up. You just stop talking. So I would be like, Tessa, I see that you're interested in the work that we're doing at this nonprofit, and I think you would really enjoy, contributing to this project. Would you consider a gift of $10,000? And then just silence. And the difference that made between, what I would do before, which is just be like, oh, and I think, you'd really like this. Would you want, like just keep going and going and going and talking until they interrupt me, basically. The power of that is like, I've raised millions of dollars now in capital campaign fundraising just by stopping, just by pausing and letting the question sink in and letting other people be responsive. And how much do you learn from people too by being quiet and just listening too, right?
Ding,
Like
ding,
that's
ding.
the other
That
thing.
is the key, right?
Yeah.
Like being the quiet one and the observer and the listener, you learn so much about people. You learn so much about what affects them, what impacts them, what motivates them just by listening and observing.
So for someone with an ADHD brain like mine, I have found that one of the tools that helps me to do what you're saying, which is such a power move, and it's not even a move, it's like literally a lifestyle kind of thing. Like it's such a great trait to take into, these spaces that are specifically, culturally, predominantly, either predominantly male or predominantly cisgendered or white or predominantly anything that's not you, frankly. The best way that I have found, or one trick that I have found, one tactic that I have found that has really served me is taking the notes. And
I 100% agree.
I used to take notes in college like gangbusters. Like I found my old 24 whatever ring binders or whatever I had. And like I had those things were filled up where I was listening to the lecture and I was writing down everything that I, thought was important, but also all of my questions and thoughts, and like come back to this and like figure this out. And, it's like having an internal dialogue internally instead of externally, right? You can do that when you start writing things down. So I always take my iPad now with my little pencil, and I'm able to just write. And I have found that that is the only way for me to get myself to stop talking and to really listen. And science has shown, of course, like when you write, you're actually absorbing that information too. But it has been such a game changer for me to go back to note taking, because once the computers came out and I started typing like crazy, like I can type so fast, but I used to think like, oh, I don't need to take notes anymore. Now I can type. I did
Or,
not realize what I was losing.
oh yeah.
And I gained so much by going back to that simple thing.
I was an early adopter of the Apple Pencil for note taking because it's ultimately lighter to carry around than,
Yeah, all the
being
notebooks,
multiple
all
binders.
the pens, all the things, yeah.
And I got into note taking when I was in law school because one of my professors had worked on Bill Clinton's gubernatorial campaign.
Mm,
And the Clintons are known for having an enormous and well-documented database of people. And so that is something
mm,
I've employed since law school in that I take notes even of like people I interact with, like say
yeah,
they mention their favorite color or their favorite food or,
yes.
their grandparents' names or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
It's I think it makes me a better friend. It makes me a better colleague because I know that my brain has so many things in it. I'm not going to be able to access it
Yeah,
perfectly all the time. But
yep.
if I know I'm having lunch with so and so and I look into so and so's contact in my phone and I can see last time we talked about blah, 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 and their favorite food is this. So why don't we go to this restaurant? I'm thinking
Mm,
those little details, like they matter because you want people to remember those things about you as well. At least I think
yeah.
I do.
Well, you feel seen and you feel heard
Yeah.
and you feel like you matter to someone, right? And I think some people might think this disingenuous. Like I've always thought that this was a deficit. So I'm so happy that you're sharing this right now because that's exactly what I do. Because I
Hmm.
think like, oh, other people can just like remember all these things about people, but I can't. And so I have to take notes. So first of all, don't feel as alone anymore. So that's great. But also I do the exact same thing with my contacts. Now, one little trick, because I love a good little hack, is
Yes.
have your like note taking app on everything if you're using a digital thing
Hmm.
and have one that you go to, because the other thing that I've done is like I've tried to be like, oh, maybe this one's better, maybe that one's better, and then when I go to like take notes, I'm like, oh, which one do I pick, and then I can lose my thought or whatever. And so I like to have one that I go to, and then it's always my go-to basically. And so no matter what
Hmm.
I'm on, I click on that and I write it down. And then if I want to copy and paste it into my contacts or whatever, like
Yep.
I do that, but I need to have like that one go-to all the time.
I 100% agree. I am should I say, I'm a big fan of Apple products because of the strict privacy standards that they employ. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like my information is safe, especially
Mm.
working in politics, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree that having one place that you're good at navigating that app, you're good
Yes.
at adding the information, you're good at
Mm-hmm.
copying and pasting, because I find that there could be a huge learning curve for me with some new
Yep.
apps.
Yep.
And of
Yep.
course, I like efficiency, so I'm just going to go
Cutting
back
that
to
out.
it.
Yeah, exactly. But talking about efficiencies again, it makes me think like for other folks, that fundamental thing that you said, and that I'm not going to let this spiral. I'm going to suffocate this thing. I'm not going to let it go
Hmm.
any further. We're going to, starve it out. I'm trying to think of like what else works for people to prevent them from going down, the spiral, and what else
Journaling,
speaks. Mm,
journaling, getting that information out of your head, through your hand, and writing it down somewhere. Like I
yeah.
feel as though I could feel it leave my body, but
Mm,
also, especially when it relates to, say, other people. Say this person made you feel deeply unworthy or insecure or brought insecurities to the forefront that you thought you had under control. Noting that that is their behavior and not yours, when you see it written down in your journal multiple times, you realize it's a them situation and not a you situation. And I think that helps preserve
mm.
your ability to see yourself better and to see the good things that you are doing, because you realize that their comments have nothing to do about me and everything to do about them.
I love that. And it makes me think that we should have a journal that says something like, I'm just going to leave this right here. Or like,
Oh,
I'm like
yeah.
something that's like, I'm going to release what's not mine and leave it right here, or something to that effect,
Yeah.
because I have gone through, the same thing. And I think you're right, is the reason you get into a spiral is because you think and you think and you think about this thing, and it leads to another thought. It leads to another thought. It leads to
Mm-hmm.
another emotion, and the emotion leads to another thought, leads to another memory sometimes. And then, the spiral is like, now you're thinking about something that happened to you when you were 5 years old. And well, like, how did we get here?
Yeah, right. And that's just, you have
Um,
to remember that your brain lies to you.
Yes, and your brain is actually built to protect you. And that's why if you're feeling fearful in these spaces, the spiraling makes sense, because your brain is going to think of everything that it can think of that
Mm-hmm.
will be scary, so that it can protect you from it, right? It's just
Yeah.
vigilance. It's hypervigilance, as they say. And I think you're right. I wonder too, though, like, to me, there's this critical point in time where you can know all of the healthy things, right? Like, I'm really good at
Mm-hmm.
telling other people what the healthy things are that they can do. And then when it happens to me, I'm like, oh, I stayed up all night thinking about that conversation I had at work. That's bad. And how come I didn't get out of that? So I always like to set myself up for success, right? That's one of my big things, is like, I have to have like kind of like cues in my environment, my
Mm-hmm.
physical environment, in order to break me out of my head, because I'm very much a top down processor. Like, I'm very much, brain first. Some people are emotions first, or what have you, right? And so for me to get embodied is a big thing, because I'm always in my head, I'm always thinking. And so one of the things that I think I'm about to do after this call is, I got a new nightstand, and I'm going to I got a lovely gift from a friend who bought me a little journal that says, all the things that people doubted me on and how that worked out for them.
Oh, I love it.
So I'm going to take that journal. I'm going to put it on my nightstand, because I'm reflecting right now and recognizing that one of the places where a lot of these ruminating thoughts come up, and they're negative, like things that other people have either said to me or about me, or I assume they're negative or what have you, they don't creep in during the day so much, because I keep busy. I'm a busybody. I'm active. I'm doing this thing. I'm doing that thing. There's always something else. And it's not something that plagues me in that way on the daily. But at night, when my mind's, when my body starts to relax, when my mind starts to, like, get free, that's when I find that it comes in. And so
Oh
I'm going to take
no. Relaxation can't be
that.
interrupted by that.
Exactly. And so I think the way to get out of it would be, if I have that journal right there, and I think about your words of like leaving this with the journal, and like releasing it
Mm-hmm.
to the journal. Um, I think that's a really good kind of ritual for just like letting all of that go, and letting my body like have permission to release and relax. So I think that could work for me. I like that.
And I think when I do that and release it into a journal, I also, if it starts creeping into my head again, I know that I have my analytical mind can go to this journal and analyze these events separately and see the connections, see the
Mhm.
commonalities,
Mhm.
because everything has its cycles and patterns. And when you can see them in paper, in your thoughts that
Mm.
were contemporaneous to that event that sparked the self-doubt and the spiraling, it provides a relief of comfort for my analytical brain, because while I allowed it to leave my analytical brain, it is now in a place where I can reference it and analyze it in the future
It's
if
going to
need
be
be.
there. Yeah, you're telling your brain, like, don't worry, it's going to be there when we want it. So
Yeah.
you don't have to
I
worry
mean,
about that
hopefully
right
my brain
now.
doesn't want it, but yeah.
But it also
But
made
this
me
all
think
brought up to
about,
me
go ahead.
a quote that I was reminded of from Pippi Longstocking, which is books
Nice.
that I read a lot as a child. And one of them is Pippi saying, I've never done that before, so I think I definitely can do it.
I love it. I love
But right,
that.
just having that independent mindset
Yeah. And the
like
confidence.
ingrained is so important.
Yes, absolutely. And I do the same thing. Like I said, darkness is going to drive out light, and,
Hmm.
good habits and positive thinking is going to drive out bad habits and negative thinking. And so, one of the things that people always say when I'm like, well, do this and do, like, try this, try to practice that, like, try to start this today or whatever. They'll be like, well, that's hard. And my response automatically is, you can do hard things, and you can do hard things. And I just repeat myself all the time, and you can do hard things, to the point now where anytime somebody says that around me, they're like, that's hard. And I can do hard things. Like, they already know it's coming. So then they say it, right? And
Yeah.
it's like you said, it's the reprogramming. It's the
Yep.
reprogramming. And if you think about how many years, however old you are, it took you that many years to be programmed in the way that you are right now.
Hmm.
So you have to think about how long it's going to take, like hopefully not as long, but it's going to take time. It's going to take repetition. It's going to take like a practice. It doesn't happen
Yep.
because you say it once or you hear it once, right? It has to
No.
be over and over again. And that's why I think it's so important to be surrounded by people who really truly love you and see you for how brilliant and beautiful you are, so that they can
Hmm.
remind you in those times that you forget.
Yeah. It's so important. And to surround yourself with people where you feel comfortable discussing your self-doubt, right? Like,
Yeah. Being
I
vulnerable
find
is
that
so that's you don't feel like you can be vulnerable in the workplace, right? Because you're
of
scared,
course not. Oh my
right?
God. And no, in the United States in today's, no way. Mm-mm.
So you got to have that safety. You got to have that comfort, that place where you can really be vulnerable and honest with yourself and with
Hmm.
somebody else. It
Yep.
makes a huge difference.
And for me, I find it in a small group of really close friends, right? Like,
Mhm.
I know a lot of people, but
Mhm.
I do not consider all of them close.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the
And that's
discernment, right?
it's the discernment, yes. And I was going to say just that is like that, and that's such an important skill to have too, right? Because there's so many times where people don't, they don't want to be lonely. They want to have friends. They want to be surrounded by people, and they surround themselves with, whoever's there,
Yep.
whoever's around.
Hmm.
And you do yourself a disservice by surrounding yourself with people who aren't necessarily going to be the healthiest or like giving people to you. Like the discernment is so, so important. Can you talk at all
Hmm.
about like how you develop discernment, or have you ever like noticed your growth in that way? Like how do you grow into understanding who is good to keep in your circle and who is not? And also maybe talk about like, how do you get somebody out of your circle? Like, I think that's another hard thing is like, you build up around you because we all do. And
Hmm.
then when you reassess, how do you make sure that the right people are there and the wrong people are not?
I, for me, trust my instincts
Mm,
1,000%. While
yeah.
that math is wrong, my confidence and belief in my instincts is correct.
And how do you
Because,
tune into your instincts? I feel like when you talked about the noise, right, of this society
mhm,
specifically, even the fact that like, I don't know, it seems like we're more and more and more programmed to be constantly plugged in, like literally connected to devices that are just noise. Like I used to think about back in, when I was young, I used to say like, well, look at Times Square. It's like lights everywhere, things, noise everywhere. And now it's like all of that. We got Times Square in our palm of our hand type of thing.
right?
So how do you connect? How do you stay connected, or how do you reconnect with your intuition? Because I feel like things are becoming very cerebral in kind of, it's hard for me to even find the words to explain how like we're being engaged, our brains are being engaged, but it's like we're being programmed also to forget about our bodies in a way, if that makes sense to you. Like, did that translate for you?
It did. I'm like going through my head. I'm like, do I say this aloud? But I'm going to. I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to say this aloud.
Do it.
I see spirits. I see people I know. I see people I don't know. I have a sense of what a lot of people are thinking without having talked to them or being in the same room with them. It started out when I was very young, like 10. By like 11 or 12, I remember vividly being at a banquet for my brother's sporting events, begrudgingly being there, being sat next to a man that I didn't want to sit next to. I told my mom in Swedish loudly that I needed to move seats, that this was not going to work. And then several years later, that man killed his wife and was subsequently executed by the state that he was living in at the time.
Wow.
And I have had these experiences multiple times. One time my husband was between jobs. I came home from the office and I said, we need to go to X store. And he's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. We just need to go to X store. We went to this store. He ran into a friend and a colleague. Within 24 hours, he was in a new job that he really loved.
Wow. Amazing.
And so I have just learned to trust my instincts because of events like that. And I listen.
Yes. And you know what I think is so beautiful about that? First of all, thank you for being so vulnerable and brave and saying that and sharing that real experience, because I think that, even the fact that you have to be brave to share that is wild, because what has happened when women have shared that kind of power, they've shared their powers in the past, and what has happened to them?
Burned at the stake. Burned at the stake.
So talk about trauma, right? Talk about fear and vigilance, right? So it is brave to talk about that. And I also think that it would be really brave for each of us, because I came to the same conclusion. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen spirits per se, but I have definitely sensed, presences. And I've also like seen and learned that when I trust my instincts, good things happen. And when I go against my instincts, bad things happen. And so just literally that exercise, I think if you are operating from a place of, first of all, thinking about what other people are thinking about you. I always say that's none of my business. So I try not to be so nosy. None of my business what people are thinking, or even doing, really, unless it's impacting me and my family type of thing. But if you just, generally, if everyone would just take stock and even do a reflection, just sit for 5 minutes and think about any example in your life where you felt something, you felt an instinct to do a thing, and you either did it and what was the outcome, or you didn't do it and what was the outcome. Because, like your experience, Tessa, is yours, and as inspiring as it is, I think it's probably so much more powerful for people to like look at their own lives and their own instances and to know, because like in your case, you could verbalize it, which is incredible from a young age. Like you could articulate your instincts, and then they proved to be right. And that's
only because I had a secret language, right? Like I didn't say it in English so people could hear it.
I love a secret language. But we can all do that internally too, right? Like we can all literally think about the times. And I mean, I feel like people sometimes can, overthink it. And that's the problem. Like when you overthink it, then you lose your instinct, because your brain basically like bullies that out of you. It just pushes out any other thing, right? Because it's like, no, analyze. And it's interesting to hear you talk about this too, because you talk about how you have such an analytical brain. And I very much relate to that. It's like you have both. And how do you balance the two, actually, right? Like you feel your instinct. Have you ever had a moment where you have an instinct and your brain tells you the opposite thing?
No, because I will put my instinct above my brain. Like I remember getting that what I think is very generic advice is in the United States to do the things that scare you. And I think that is horrible advice, because if it's scaring you, it means your instincts are telling you should not be doing it. But what I think the actual issue is, and what people are trying to say, is you should do the things that intimidate you because you can do them. Not because of fear, but because of intimidation.
Yes. Because I think, my understanding of that is it's all about like, growth is on the other side of fear or something to that effect. But you're right. Like if something is scary, like don't grab a rattlesnake, like
right?
Your body is telling you that's a bad idea. But if it's something that like, you feel that you can do this thing, and maybe there's all this noise in your head that is maybe, I always like to try to say like, whose voice is this? Because when you have thoughts come into your head, first of all, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer seeing these thoughts come through, right? So I always like to even take another step back, and it makes me think about the journaling thing where it's like, we're almost like, let's take a step back and think about where this pattern is, or who's actually speaking, or where did this come from? And so I like to use my analytical brain for that, to be like, I can use my brain to first of all, like honor and trust my instinct, and then use my brain to kind of like break down like, but why are these thoughts coming up? Who are they coming from? Where did they originate from? Like, are they thoughts that I actually value or want to take seriously, right? And that helps me, because just because you have a thought pop into your head doesn't mean that you have to take it seriously or honor it or act on it, right? Or speak it.
Correct. And I think one thing that really helps me is that I do not believe in regret. I think it steals our joy and it steals our presence.
Yes. Well, because you're living in the past. If you are regretting something, you're living in the past.
And I think holding that view as like almost sacred to me makes it easier for me to trust my instincts, and then whatever my instincts tell me, use my analytical brain to figure out how to accomplish that.
Yes, I love that. And see, that reframing just did it for me, Tessa. I love it. I love you so much. It's so good. Because see, the thing that I was thinking, which always happens, in the society especially, is that you think of everything as kind of like, everything's competitive and everything is adversarial. Right. Or that's my experience anyways. That's the messaging I get, is that's the way things are. And that's why my favorite things are always like collaboration and the win-win, and like the opposite of those presumptions, right? And so what you just taught me is that the mind and the instinct are not adversaries. If you notice the questions I was asking, the direction I was going, the position I was in before you said that was one where I was making an assumption of like, but they're always against each other. So how do you square that? How do you square your instinct and your brain, right?
I think for me, I just don't like the idea of living in a body or a mind or a soul that has competing. It's inefficient, right? For me, I need them to be friends, and I need them to be collaborating, and I need them to work in the benefit and good of everything.
You know what though? I think that that's a really powerful visualization for all of us to practice. Is, first of all, if you don't know what we're talking about in terms of being, in tune with your intuition or connected with your intuition, you are not alone. And this world, this society is very much set up, like I was saying, to kind of disconnect that and taking away that mind body connection, I think is the way people refer to it a lot of times. Is a powerful thing, because if you don't have your instincts, which is a very, very powerful, source within you, then you're easier to be manipulated, right? So I love this kind of visual, I love a visual. So like in my mind, I'm thinking about what you said as like, I mean, this is very kind of specific to me in that like I'm trying to run an organization. And so I think about the organism of my body and thinking about like, oh, I need these two to collaborate. I need these teams to collaborate. I need them to be on the same
Mm-hmm.
page. I need them to be connected, right?
Yep.
Because everything else is telling me the other thing. But if I know
Yep.
that that works, for people, why wouldn't it work for my internal system? I love that.
It also made me realize that everyone who has been othered in any way, we have a superpower. And
Mm,
I thought of my experience in that I developed a sense of self and my trust in my instinct because
mm,
I was always different. And I never thought of that as bad. I thought of it as a good thing, as a superpower that made me special and unique compared to everybody else who just seemed to be one note and
mm.
assimilated. Like I
Yeah.
never wanted to be like everybody else. And I think that helped me connect to my instinct more because I didn't have all the noise because I chose not to listen to it because I thought I had the superpower myself.
Mm. I love it. And it just shows the power of perspective, right?
Yeah.
And going back to the journaling tip, like I was thinking how they always say, well, 2020 vision when you're looking like hindsight is 2020, right?
Yeah.
So even
Yep.
just to putting that in the past and being able to look back at it as opposed to it being your reality now, like that has power in it, right? But having that
Hmm.
perspective of, this might be how somebody else sees it, and I choose to see it this way. Like just the power of that is so stark and so amazing. And I think that's why, again, going back to the community, it's so important to be surrounded by people who have a positive outlook, not just on life, but regarding you specifically,
Right. And people who don't yuck your
mhm,
yum, right?
period,
Like let
period,
everybody be who
never.
they are and enjoy the things that they like.
And see the good in people, just
Absolutely.
generally. Like, I think that there's good in all of us. And, I think that's the thing is like, when you're coming from a place of insecurity, one of the ways that you feel better about yourself, like we've talked about, is by putting other people down. And so even if you're not doing it aloud, even if you're not being that loud person in the office that's like publicly like, first of all, I want to say like it shows up in a lot of different ways. So just so that people are aware, right? Like it can show up in so many ways. Like there are people who are
Hmm.
blatantly like, we don't like you and
Yep.
you're doing a terrible job or you'll never be able to do that. And they just say things like, that are ridiculously negative and inappropriate, and harmful, period, right?
Yep.
Like there are people who are just blatantly mean, is the way
Yep.
I would put it, and inconsiderate, right? And uncouth and all the things. And then it shows up in a lot of other ways too. So one of the things that I have started to understand, like I'm a person who almost like, you got to be careful with your, with your perspective, because my perspective started off as like giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, which I don't think is a bad thing still, but to the point where even when evidence was coming up, I was ignoring it. It's a confirmation bias situation, right? Where it's like, people are
Mm.
showing me that they're negative and I'm like, no, they're good. And what they're saying must be, misguided, or they must be not thinking right, or I need to explain myself better or whatever. I put a lot of onus on myself in those
I was
situations.
gonna say, because shouldn't it be asking the other person, like, what
Hmm.
brought you to that conclusion, or what made you say
Yes.
that?
Yes. Well, that's because you have the healthy tools, Tessa. That's hashtag life goals. But that's what I mean is like, that's how.
Hashtag how you survive in politics.
Truly, truly. And that's what I'm saying is like that's how you can get there, is by first of all noticing and knowing first and foremost that negativity, people who are actually trying to put you down, hold you back, all the things, people that are bad for you and your mental, emotional, and spiritual health,
Hmm.
they literally find ways to do it with a smile, right?
Hmm.
And you have to be able to have that discernment that you talked about, right? So one of the ways that it shows up, just because, I love a good example, is people just asking lots of questions of you. And when you step back and you think about it, you're like, why are these people questioning me all the time, right? But like when you're in it, you think like, oh, this person wants to know this information. Let me be helpful and give them the
Hmm.
information. But what I realize now is like when people keep asking questions, they keep asking you, well, why are you doing this? Why do you think that that's going to happen? Why would you? They're literally doubting you. And those are seeds of doubt that then can
Mm-hmm.
become self-doubt. And they know that. They know that if they
Mm-hmm.
plant that seed of doubt, that it will grow within you and they won't even have to water it. You'll be watering it
Yep.
for them. And so, like you said, we need to have tools. So what do you do, Tessa? Because I want to study at your feet on this one. What do you do when somebody starts questioning either your decisions or your plan or your whatever? Like, what do you do when somebody starts asking all the questions?
I either use silence and don't answer them,
Mm.
or I do the lawyer thing and answer the question with another question. Like,
Brilliant.
I
Brilliant.
am apt to not give what they want to those seeds of doubt. I will not give them space. I will not allow them to be planted within me, and I will put it back on them by saying, so why do you think that whatever their question is would have X impact? And then they realize either they've been caught or they
Mm-hmm.
realize that, oh, I don't think I actually thought through this
I
and I'm
just
just
saying
babbling.
shit. I'm just
Yeah.
saying shit to fill up the room with noise again. Yeah.
Or
And be
as I call them,
comfortable.
head rattlers.
Head rattlers, I love it. The
Hmm.
Texas saying of rubbernecking, it comes to mind when you say head rattlers. Like I'm just gonna add that to that list of colloquial terms that I'm going to use. The head rattlers, I love it. I'm obsessed with that. That's everything. And I think it's the right way to go is to get curious. So I've been telling my sister, like, just be like, I've been telling her it this way. I don't know if it's the right thing to say because I don't think we should ever act dumb, but I put it that way for her to be like, just act dumb. Like you just act like you don't know what they're talking about because then it lends to more questions for her, right? Like she'll be like, what do you mean? Why do you say that? Like, um,
Right.
so in our language, like it will make sense that that's what will follow. But I think you're right. Like I love you framing it as the lawyer thing too, because it elevates it to the place where it's like, no, this is a smart thing to do. Get curious though and ask those questions and make people sit in self-reflection is basically what
Yep.
you're doing. You're forcing them into reflection. And that's so powerful because so many times people who are doubting you, it's really just a projection of their insecurities.
All the time.
I
It's
mean,
that.
yeah, it really is all the time, right? Because it's like, why would they doubt this? Because they're scared. Because they have
Hmm.
something that lives in them that's doubtful and they want to spread that doubt to you. So I
Or
love that. Hmm.
the phrase that I have the greatest disdain for in professional settings and maybe anywhere else because it's always been that way.
Mm.
Or that's how we always do it, which
And
is
see,
the worst.
where does that actually come from though? It comes from the psychological phenomenon in humans that familiarity is safety.
Yep.
That's where it originates from. And we know that like people in abusive relationships, for example, they can be attracted to abusive relationships because they're literally familiar with abuse. It doesn't mean that it's not harmful. It absolutely is harmful. But
Hmm.
they have this sense that somehow that's safer than anything else because the unknown is the scariest thing in the world to most people.
Circling back to the people planting seeds of doubt in you,
Hmm.
it makes me always also think, why would that person know more than I do about something?
That hits at the core of the othering, Tessa. Like that hits at the core of it because when you're othered, you are made to believe that you are lesser than. That's what it all comes down to.
But
And
it's our
it,
superpower, people.
yes,
It's our superpower.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you were not forced to conform, like you couldn't. As much as you try to assimilate, like you'll never be something you're not, right?
Yep.
So you can't conform in those ways. You can't seek safety in the group. And you're right. But people, have tried to drill that message into us that we're lesser than. And if you can find, the power within to understand that actually, like you said, it's you're yielding it as a superpower, and that you are now
Yeah.
in a place where you can see through all of the BS and the game that people are playing in order to find acceptance. And you don't even need acceptance. You've already
Hmm.
been through the ringer and you've decided, you know what? I'm good. I
This reminds me
don't.
of something a chef that my husband worked for
Hmm.
many years ago, uh, internationally known, internationally recognized, award winning. And his thought was always, you have to question the source, right? Like, I know
Mm,
my skill is not determined because some organization gave me some award. We need to question that organization.
mm,
And I think the same is true for people who try to plant seeds of doubt or try to make us feel lesser, because in reality, it's that person who's making you feel lesser or planting that doubt. That is the lesser human being in this situation. Just like, say, some BS organization tries to give somebody an award that really means nothing. For
yeah.
instance, say a certain international sports group that awards a peace prize. No.
Exactly. And I love that, just that tagline. Like, that's going to be one of the ones that I hope we talk about it over and over again so that it becomes like an instant thing for me, because I wish I had had that line of you have to question the source, because I have put it in different ways in the past where I used to say like, well, I don't care about what anyone thinks except for the people that I actually love and respect. Right. And so
Hmm.
that's another reason why it's important to only put people around you who you actually respect and who love and respect you. Right.
Yeah.
But I used to say that because I used to say, oh, a bunch of people have an opinion about me, but I don't care about their opinions. I only care about these people's opinions. Um,
Hmm.
but also the whole idea of being able to discern again, like the source. The source is so
Yep.
key, and I love that you put it that way, because when you say it, it first of all it sounds so powerful and matter of fact. You have to question the source.
Hmm.
It's not emotional. It's not an opinion. I mean, it is
Mm-mm.
an opinion, but it sounds just like a fact. Like, it sounds
Right?
like
But
something everyone could
it,
agree on.
it's like a pro and con list you have to make in your head. Does this person have the skills necessary to make that statement?
Mm, mm,
And I think it
I
applies to
love
everybody,
it.
right? It
Yes.
applies to, say, I probably view my parents in a way that is far more analytical than without any loyalty or obligation, because I think they too need to meet those standards.
Yes.
And I'm
Yes.
not going to take their advice if I don't think they're qualified to give that
Yes.
advice.
Yes. And it's not to like throw people away either. Like, the other
Mm-mm.
thing that it makes me think of, especially with family, is like there are some things where the source, the same person, can be qualified in one realm and
Yep.
unqualified in another. So
Because
like,
surprise, surprise,
mhm.
people are not magical people who are perfect in every single way.
Exactly. There's no perfection. And I just heard this today where somebody was saying, well, I'm not perfect. I'm human. And I was like, it's funny how we don't even say that whole phrase. We usually just say, well, I'm only human. Right. And it's like
Right.
we understand that that means that we're not perfect. But at the same time, we still expect each other to be perfect without without necessarily saying it like the way that we, like you were talking about judging performance earlier. And it's
Hmm.
like, how can you judge performance if the person who is the judge is expecting you to show up in one given way and you don't even know what that way is, but also it might not comport with the way that you show up. And it doesn't mean that you're not a good
Correct.
worker or that you're not productive or that
Correct.
you're not valuable. It just means that
Correct.
there's a misalignment in, it's almost like communication, right? Like this person
Oh,
communicates in this
absolutely.
way
Communication.
and you
Hmm.
communicate in this other way. And it's just literally like two ships in the night, right? Like just passing each other in the
Yeah.
night. So, is there any advice, I wonder, that you might have, Tessa, on that? Like, I know you to be a brilliant, productive, efficient, and just amazing, worker or, I don't even want to say worker. I mean, you're just a brilliant person, period. And you can do amazing, amazing things and you have, but I'm sure, as we're discussing, like you've ran into so many people, of course, that have doubted you, that have underestimated you. And, in meetings you stay silent, but I wonder specifically about this idea of a person who just like grinds it out and like does not even grinds it out, but like just offers amazing things quietly. How have you like dealt with getting the recognition that you deserve?
I have learned to say better things about myself. I've also learned to talk about my work, which I held very closely before and didn't vocalize. And at first it was very awkward and very hard. And then I realized I'm going to talk about myself the way other people talk about me. And that helped, right? Like putting on that hat that what would so-and-so say about me? And then I say it. And then it becomes after pattern and repetition, it becomes natural. And now I can openly say, I managed to blah, blah, blah this week. And it was, big task, but we did it. And I'm very proud of myself for it.
How did so you started saying it to yourself, which I love. Like it kind of mirrors the whole thing that I was saying in terms of like it starts inside, right? But how do you start? So you start inside. How do you go from that transition of being able to say it silently to yourself to being able to say it to other people? Like, does it just feel true?
You start with your partner, you start with your close friends, then you start moving to your colleagues and your coworkers, then you start moving to, potential employers, potential clients, people you don't know very well, and you learn to say it in a way that doesn't trigger all the like negative connotations, right? And I find that it helps when I say I'm very proud of myself, because then people I feel like they don't quickly judge me. It's like, oh, she's just bragging. It's more like, wow, she saw this as a challenge and then she was able to accomplish it. And so it takes away the, I think, power of the judgment.
I love that. That's really valuable to be thinking or to be able to frame it in a way that communicates what it really is, right? Because one of the things that I find is like, again, the workplace, it rewards people who can communicate their accomplishments, right? Or even take credit for other people's accomplishments, frankly.
That one I do not like.
Yeah, I don't like that. But it just creates a culture in which it's like we have to be able to speak to our own accomplishments and be able to verbalize them and be able to communicate them in a way that people hear them, they accept them, and they don't, basically get turned off by them, right? And unfortunately, it seems to me anyways, that there still exists this double standard where men can talk about their work without any caveats and, people are like, yeah, great, you did that. You're good at that. Wonderful. And when women say the same thing, they're like, wow, humble much? You get judged, right? So unfortunately, this should not be necessary. We shouldn't have to mince our words. We should not have to be thinking about this. But the truth of the matter is like, this is the world still that we live in. And, I think that, it helps. It helps to hear like the things that have worked for you and to be able to use them in a way that is going to, convey the message that we're actually trying to send. And for people to receive it and hear it and understand it, because this is the world we live in. We have to navigate it. So I think that's really, it's a power tool in a way.
And I think one way I've handled when men are allowed to speak this way, but women are not, how do you handle that? I have found that if I say something, it tends to be after a man has said the accomplishment that they have had for their
Mm.
week or whatever, I'll say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, since we're sharing accomplishments, well, and then I will share mine.
You level it. You level the playing field kind of and recognizing it. Like,
And
oh,
then and if a woman questions it or gives you that look like, ugh, how full of yourself are you? I say,
mm,
look, if men can talk about these things, we have to be able to talk about these things too.
yeah. And you use it as an opportunity to say, like, these should be our values. This is what people
Mm-hmm.
are saying are our values. This is what it looks like to operate in our values.
Yep. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that I have been like this my entire life. I have not. I still remember being in high school and everybody said, there is no way a girl makes, a top grade in calculus. Well, I said,
Watch
I
me.
will accept your challenge. But then
Yeah.
even when I was getting the highest
Challenges.
grades in all the classes, I would automatically turn my exams over so that nobody could see how
Mm.
well I did.
Just for you to know. Just,
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 yeah.
just for you. It's just for you. I
And
love
maybe
that.
that built my inner confidence, but I didn't feel need to brag about
Mm.
it or talk about it. I should say
Mm.
talk. I should not use the word brag. Pardon
No,
that.
yeah,
To
no,
talk
like
about my
you didn't
accomplishments.
feel like
And
they didn't need to know. You
they
knowing was
didn't.
enough.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think having that, building that self-confidence like that, knowing that I knew that I
Mm.
had accomplished it, just like I don't view other people as competition, I view myself as competition. And there is no
You know,
competition with anybody else.
you know what I would love for us to do right now is just a model because so many people never have this kind of modeling in their lives, right? They see women shrinking themselves. They see them
Hmm.
martyring themselves. They see them literally shrinking themselves down so that people can, again, like digest them and accept them, right?
Yep.
So I would love for us right now, for each of us, to talk positively about ourselves for a little bit. And maybe it's just like, Tessa, tell me, I don't know, 3 great things about you or something like that.
This week, I am very proud of the fact that I am doing better about work-life balance and that
Mm,
my priorities are not 100% work focused. My work stays in between the hours that I need to work for that day to accomplish what needs to be accomplished and to accomplish it well. But after that time ends, I am living my full life. My phone is set for a focus so that I'm not receiving quote unquote emergencies that are not really emergencies. Right? Like
the
drawing those,
emergencies. They're emergencies.
yeah. And then I'm using that time to do the things that I love, like being in my garden, cooking,
Mm,
baking, doing things that are very like what I think of as living the European lifestyle that I
mm,
enjoy.
I love
And
it.
it's not because I think that's how it should be. It's just that that's what works for me. I'm not going to tell anyone else to do it the way I'm doing my life. But I think we all need that time, right? To just have a life because we're too tied to our work identities
Yeah.
as that is who we are. And I don't think that's who we are. I think we are people who can hold multiple opinions and do
Yes.
multiple things
Yeah.
and have multiple layers to ourselves. And I am glad that I have gotten out of the mentality I had in my early 30s that was like work, 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 achieve, achieve,
Mm,
achieve, must
mm.
work all the time, even on the weekends, even after hours, even if there's nothing important happening.
Wow. And we knew each other all through that time, right?
Yeah, crazy, huh?
It is crazy because even then I was like, your perspective is so refreshing and wonderful. And it was because I was in the same place of like trying to build a career and not understanding
Hmm.
why I was hitting so many walls when, I had inner confidence about being intelligent and capable and,
Hmm.
having brilliant ideas. And it was like, why is this not enough for people? I'm so confused. And you helped me to see all of that. So first of all, thank you, Tessa, for sharing that. It's so beautiful to hear you talk about, you know, what you are proud of for yourself and also just knowing a little bit more about like how your journey has been, unfolding and how it's bringing you more joy. And it sounds like fulfillment and alignment with who you really are into your life. It makes me feel just full of warmth and joy because I love you so much and I'm so happy for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
I want to hear what you are proud of this week.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of talking about what I love about myself. because I'm not accomplishing things right now as much as I am just returning to myself and getting to know
That
myself
is
more.
accomplishing something, though.
Well, it's funny because when I think about accomplishing, it's kind of funny, like you're pulling this out right now. When I think about accomplishing things, it's almost like in my mind, my default perspective is, and this is, I'm just realizing as you're pulling it out of me, this is, this is a toxic kind of perspective or like a, probably not an ideal perspective, but like when I think about accomplishing things, I think about it as like things that I'm doing for other people, for the world, for what, like accomplishing things to me is like doing things that other people want or need me to do. And I
So
didn't
there's an
even know that.
external component.
It's completely external. Like for me, if I'm doing things for me, they're not accomplishments. They're just living,
Oh,
like, and I don't even know if that's bad. I just like literally like realized like that word specifically, accomplishments, like it makes me think of like my task list. I
oh,
did that, but you're right. It is an accomplishment. It is something to be proud of. And it is a lot of work. Like I love that I have been on this healing journey. And I'm realizing more and more, even, especially through this conversation, that most of it, and through so much others, other work, that most of it is me just trying to return to myself, actually.
I love
Um,
that. I love that you've got to the place where you can love you as much as I love you.
Oh, that is really, the thing. I think that's really what we want for everyone, who's listening and everyone who, could benefit from listening or anyone who's struggling with this. It's like so much of that mask persona is trying to make yourself acceptable for other people to love. But if you turn that on its head and you start prioritizing you loving yourself, um, it looks very, very different.
And that's where I think our power is rooted, right? Our
Yeah,
power comes from loving ourselves because then we are our best selves. And we can
yeah,
perform at our highest rate if we need to think of it in an external term.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, even that, it's like the things that I love about myself that I am rediscovering about myself now that I've, had really the time and space to really get to know myself again. I love how like inspired I get. I love how like generative with ideas that I get, even, if they're for making money or making the world better or just making people more happy or whatever. Like I just have so many ideas that flow when I'm in a safe, secure, and healthy state, right? I love my creativity that is inherent. I love expressing my creativity. I love creating. Um, it feels so good and it feels like it's just so in alignment with who I just am, not who I'm trying to be for anybody else.
And I love that you've reached this place in your journey because how wonderful to see yourself in that positive, glowing light because your mind and your creative mind is so brilliant. And I love that you're sharing it with us.
Thank you, Tessa. And thank you for just walking alongside me. I mean, I really wish everyone had this kind of guidance through their journey because that's what life is, right? Like it's never linear. It's always a
Oh,
winding road and we're just walking in the dark. I think someone described faith as like taking the next step without seeing where it's going to land or something like that. And it just has this visual impact on me where I keep thinking of the path where it's like you could never know how your path is going to wind through life, but having someone, next to you like you, makes it so less scary and makes it, makes it, it truly gives me like the confidence to know that like I'm going to be fine. Everything's going to
yeah.
be, everything's going to be okay. And that is so huge. So I'm in so much gratitude for you. And I hope that, you get the same, from me and from your other close friends. And I hope that some of this also, of course, translates to our listeners, because this is what we want. This is why we're doing what we're doing, because we want this for everyone, truly.
I can say that what we've talked about today would have been so helpful to like 23-year-old me when I graduated from law school. And to have had a friend like you at 23 would have been life-changing. But I am so happy that you walked into my life when you did, because it has been magical since.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes I think of my favorite people in the world, like you, another friend who I call my sister. Like, I just think that we've always been connected, actually. And sometimes
I
I
love
imagine,
this.
sometimes I imagine that y'all were like at my wedding, even though you weren't. I'm just like, does time really exist? You know, like
No, it does not.
it does not. So I think that we've always been connected in those ways.
Yes.
And what I hope for my wildest, one of my wildest dreams, I love sharing wild dreams. That's another fun thing about me. Is I have, I think we have this shared dream, but I think one of my wildest dreams that we share would be like, can we build together this community? Can we build an uplifting community, even if we're connected only by, you know, messages and, digital means or whatever it might be? Like, is there a way to build that? And I think that that path is there, and we can't see it, but we're going to keep taking steps forward until we get there.
I think it is there. It is probably the modern form of communication, right? Like I think about, is it Fortnite that has a hidden library that you can access all the censored books in the world, no matter where you are? Right? Like I think it's that magical idea of sharing positivity, not only face to face or in person, but also through messaging and voice messaging and whatever it takes, because we have to find a way to drown out the people who want to plant seeds of self-doubt, the people who say negative things, the people who passively aggressively say negative things, and the people who just choose to other us when we are the superheroes.
An image just came to me that's inspired by you, Tessa, of we could do sessions together where we weed out the negativity, the garden, like we tend to our gardens, our spiritual gardens. And it's inspired by your gardening, but it made me think of like, we need to water each other's flowers so they can bloom. And we need to literally do the weeding. And what else is it called? The pruning. And prune out the negativity and the seeds of hate and the seeds of self-doubt and all of those nasty seeds and weeds that we don't want in our garden. And we can help each other tend to our gardens.
And all the while sharing flowers with everyone, because everyone deserves your compliments, because everyone has something to compliment.
Oh, the garden is working on the metaphor level.
It's so working.
The garden is working for me. I love it. Well, I love you so much, Tessa. I love all of you for listening. I hope that you are feeling as uplifted as I am right now. I'm so grateful to each of you for starting to build this community with us, and especially grateful for you, Tessa, for sharing your journey and your lessons with us so that we can benefit from them, apply them to our lives, and, stay uplifted through this wild, wild ride that is our world and lives.
I just want to say, yes, 10 out of 10. I agree with everything Sai just said, and I love her so much. And I hope you all fall in love with her as well, because she is amazing.
Well, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Stay uplifted, y'all.